All right, today we're diving into something that really gets under all of our skin: fear. We're going to dissect a bunch of supposedly true stories, the kind you hear and can't quite shake, to figure out what makes them so terrifying. We're going to peel back the layers and get to the heart of what truly scares us. Let's get into it.
It always starts with that, doesn't it? Just a feeling, that little prickle on the back of your neck that says something is wrong. This one question, it's from one of the stories we're looking at, and it just nails that universal, creepy feeling that's at the core of so much of what we find frightening.
So what is it? What's the secret sauce that takes a story from just spooky to something that genuinely chills you to the bone? Is it just the monster, the jump scare, or is it something deeper? In this explainer, we're going to break down the different kinds of fear these stories tap into, and you'll see there are some pretty clear patterns that make them so darn effective.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about the fear of history. This is the idea that some places are just, they're soaked in the past. Like so much happened there that the events themselves just can't help but echo into today.
And for our first stop, we're going to Myrtle's Plantation. It has a serious reputation, right? One of the most haunted spots in America. And a student on what should have been a normal school trip is about to get a perfect and perfectly creepy example of this historical echo.
So picture this. You're in this old room, and you hear it. A single piano key, just plinking over and over again. But here's the thing. Your friends, they hear absolutely nothing. You start to feel a little crazy, right? Isolated. But then you lock eyes with a total stranger across the room, and they give you this little gesture, like, you hear that too, right? And in that exact moment of this shared secret experience, the tour guide casually mentions the legend. A soldier's ghost is said to play that piano.
All right, let's stick with this theme for a minute and head to another place with a really dark past. This time, it's a couple on their honeymoon, and they run into something that is somehow there, and then just impossibly not. So they get off the elevator, and bam, this overwhelming smell of fresh paint just hits them like a wall. They see a painter working, but the guy totally ignores them. The smell is so strong they ask for a different room. They come back just 10 minutes later, and he's gone. The paint cans are gone, and the creepiest part? The smell has completely vanished. The next day on a tour, the guide tells them the story of that floor, how years ago a painter fell to his death in an elevator shaft, right there. And what's so wild about these stories is how they tap into this theory called a residual haunting. The idea isn't that some ghost is trying to say boo. It's more like a really intense traumatic event left a kind of psychic scar on the place itself. It's like a tape recording of that moment, just playing back on a loop for anyone who happens to be sensitive enough to notice. The place itself is holding the memory.
But what happens when the thing you're scared of isn't some ghostly echo from the past? What if it's right here, right now, and it's human? This is where the fear gets a whole lot more real.
Yeah, this is where things take a really interesting turn. We're making a huge shift here, moving away from the supernatural, the fear of what we can't explain, to something we know all too well, the fear of what other people are capable of. And you could argue this is a way deeper kind of horror, because it breaks our sense of safety in the world we actually live in.
Okay, so the scene is a first date. Kind of sweet, right? A couple decides to go for a midnight hike in Provo Canyon. It's romantic, but also really, really isolated. And that's when this weird feeling starts to creep in.
As they're walking through this super dark patch of trees, the guy just gets this gut feeling, a voice in his head screaming, "Turn back." He tries to ignore it, pushes forward, and then his foot hits something soft. In the dark, they have no idea what it is, but that feeling of pure dread comes roaring back. They don't hesitate, they turn around and get out of there as fast as they can.
So they book it out of there, and the whole thing just becomes this weird story they tell people about their first date. Years go by. They even get married. And then, one night, they're just watching TV, and an interview comes on that turns that weird story into an absolute nightmare.
It's an interview with Ted Bundy, and he starts talking. He describes the one time he came closest to getting caught, right after he'd killed a woman in Provo Canyon. He was hiding in the trees, watching, as he says some guy walked right up and literally bumped into the body, and then just turned around and left. That's something soft on the path. It wasn't a log, it was her, and he had just stumbled away from becoming Bundy's next victim.
Okay, so we've gone from a ghost to a very real monster. But what about when the threat is just random, unexplained? For that, we leave the dark woods and head out onto the vast, empty darkness of the open ocean.
where a fishing trip gets really, really strange.
So imagine, it's the middle of the night, you're miles from anywhere, and this little motorboat with no lights just pulls up out of the pitch black. The guy asks for gas, but when they say they don't have any, he's like, "Oh, it's okay, I've got plenty." It makes no sense. Then he just stares at them, blankly. Finally, he lets out this weird little laugh and just disappears back into the night.
They're completely freaked out, obviously. They sail to a different spot, try to get some sleep. And then, around 2 in the morning, the wife screams. The husband shoots up, and there, at the foot of their bed, is a man standing in the dark. It's him, the guy from the motorboat. Before he can even move, the guy bolts, and they hear that same motorboat speeding away.
And that right there brings us to maybe the most primal fear of all, the invasion of our safe space. The one place in the entire world where you are supposed to feel secure, and suddenly it isn't.
I mean, just think about it. Your childhood bedroom, a private video call with a friend, a tent zipped up tight in the middle of nowhere. These are our sanctuaries, you know? The places we let our guard down. And every story we're about to touch on is about that exact feeling of safety being shattered.
This really breaks down how this kind of fear works, step by step. First, you feel totally safe. You're in your space. Then, there's this little thing that's off. A noise you can't place, a door that's open when you know you shut it. And then, the horrifying reveal, it's not the wind. It's a person, someone who is not supposed to be there. And after that, that place is never safe again. The feeling is gone for good.
So, okay, we've looked at ghosts, we've looked at killers, we've looked at intruders. We have to ask the big question. Why? Why do these stories get under our skin and just stay there? What is the fear that truly lingers?
So, what's the common denominator here? A phantom piano player, Ted Bundy hiding in the trees, a stranger in your bedroom? They seem so different, but they're not. There's a single, terrifying thread that connects all of them. So what is the shared DNA of their horror?
It all boils down to these 4 things. First, a safe space gets violated, whether it's your bedroom or just your sense of reality. Second, something that was hidden becomes terrifyingly visible. But maybe the biggest thing is the ambiguity, the why. We never find out why the guy on the boat was there. We never know what would have happened. And that lack of an answer, that's what really haunts you.
And that brings us right to the end. This quote, it's from the person who saw a man come out of their childhood closet, and it says everything. A feeling that I still remember today. And that's it, isn't it? The actual danger might be over in a moment, but that feeling, the memory of pure terror, the knowledge that you weren't safe, that lasts a lifetime. And maybe that's the scariest part of all, the realization that some doors, once they're opened, can never really be closed again.